What is going on? Welcome to today's episode of Behind the Lens. Today we have a special guest named Frank Galea. So Frank is a legend, first and foremost. Secondly, he is a father, husband, and I actually met Frank on a retreat called the Rich Mystic Man. And one of the things that immediately had me go, I need to get this guy on a podcast, is his presence. Now, the only way I can explain this is he's a man's man. He's a hunter, fisher. He's a very raw and real person, but he's very in tune with his emotions. And as someone who's doing a lot of work around emotions and all those other things, I was like, I immediately want to chat to this guy. So today I talked to Frank, and we talk a whole bunch of stuff around his childhood, him as a father. So if you resonate with any of that, you're going to love today's episode. Today's episode is powered by Triple Effect, where we create 6 months worth of video content for YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok, and film it all in the space of 2 days. We do everything from scripting, filming, editing, as well as publishing the videos. And now we look after podcasts as well. So we do everything for podcasts, from launching to distribution, creating all the social clips like you will see for this episode. So if you're interested in finding out more, head to tripleeffect.com.au. Otherwise, let's get started with the show. All right, so welcome to another episode of Behind the Lens. Today, I'm joined by the incredibly good-looking, he's even worn a collared shirt for me, so I'm feeling very privileged today, Frank Galea. So Frank, do you want to just give a quick intro as to who you are and give a quick intro as to who you are and how did we meet?
Okay, so hey legends. So firstly, I just want to say thanks for having me on here, Alan. Obviously, I'm Frank, and I'm an online business owner. I partner with the company called Inagic and high ticket affiliate marketing. I basically support people to start businesses themselves, as well as I am an online coach. And I take people through NLP type breakthroughs and really get to the core of their emotions and the trauma that they're faced to really overcome and step into a new version of themselves. The past me was a tradesman. I used to swing spanners. I used to fix machines. That was who I was. I did that for like 20 years, basically, of my life before I made the transition into the online space. And I haven't looked back since. So that's really in a nutshell. But I'm sure as we release the conversation here and we get deeper into it, you're going to see and hear a lot more aspects of my life, my former life, as well as my current life.
Yep.
So yeah, let's go with it.
Boom. Thank you for the quick little intro. So talk to me about what that past life, I'm assuming you're in some sort of mechanical industry. Is that right?
Yeah.
So even share a little bit about what you were doing and what does life look like now for you?
Yeah. So, okay, this is really cool. So I got kicked out of school at year 11. The teachers basically called my mum in and said, we don't want your son here anymore. And, her response was 3 girls and I never had a problem. I have 1 boy and he gets kicked out of school. There's police coming to the house. There's all sorts of chaos happening. So the next thing for me was like, all right, well, I love cars. I got into a trade. So got into a car mechanic trade and it was fucking shit. Excuse the language, but it was shit. It was hard work and the pay was bugger all. And I basically got out at the end of my apprenticeship and I went into warehousing because it was so much easier on the body. And here you go, lifting kilos of, Coke bottles and dog food cans, and it was still easier than being a mechanic, but I was making triple the money. So I was working half the hours and I was living the life. I was partying. I was, doing the usual thing that a 19, 20-year-old does. And then what happened, it wasn't sustainable. Like they'd cut hours, they'd cut shifts. Warehousing is a very casual game. And then a friend said, I've got a full-time gig for you in a pharmaceutical company. And I'm like, okay, sounds all right. So I went there and within a few months of starting, they saw my mechanical background. They said, do you want to become a fitter? Which a fitter is basically a mechanic, but more of an engineering side of things. So I had to go do a mechanical engineering apprenticeship to be part of it. And I became a mechanical fitter. And I actually quite enjoyed the trade. It was more specialist. It was more technical, and I made a lot more money. I think my hourly rate as a first-year apprentice mechanical fitter was about $5 an hour more than a qualified car mechanic. So it was like, well, it makes sense to go this way. And because I had such a niche career in pharmaceuticals, I literally fell into high paying jobs after I finished my apprenticeship, and there was never an issue. And I got paid good money. I was upwards of 50K a month. A year. And back then, we're talking 10 years ago, that was good money. Now it's probably cutthroat, but back then it was sensational money. And then I did chop and change. Like, I went between employers. I was sort of either, if not chasing the money, chasing the lifestyle. I got myself a job that wasn't in pharmaceuticals anymore, and it was in this 3 on 4 off roster. So I was making the money, and I had the days off to go with it. But eventually I just got fed up with the dirtiness of it. I said, I want to find myself back in pharmaceuticals. And I started applying for jobs in the pharma industry. And I applied for a job. And this job happened to be with Australia's second biggest company, probably the biggest now, global pharmaceutical company, global powerhouse. And on the job interview, it specified a lot of the details about the job advertisement. Then I went to the interview. They gave me a position description. Again, shared certain aspects. And then I made it through to the second interview. And on the second interview, they basically told me that there'll be no RDO in this job. There'll be no RDO. You're coming in, you're doing 5 days a week. But everyone else that you work with has an RDO, but you won't get one, even though the position description had it and so on. I'm like, what the hell? It's like, I've just got this job with this, the biggest company that people, essentially what I refer to as people have to die for someone else to get a job there, basically, because it's a place that doesn't leave. And here they are, they can't give me the same conditions. But I was just desperate to get out of what I was in, and I took the job. And I took the job, and I thought, whatever. It's just a day up, a fortnight. I'll get over it. And then I was working beside guys. We were doing the same job. We were getting the same money, employed in the same boss, same manager, same position description, except I didn't have an RDO. And the guys would come back from their 3-day weekend, or they'd put a couple extra days of annual leave, and they'd say, how awesome their weekend was with their family and so on. I was like, what the fuck? This is like a family-friendly company that prides itself on taking care of its employees. And they can't give me the fucking RDO like the fucking rest of the crew that I'm working with. It's not like it was a different department that had it. It was my department, I was like, I could never understand that. And that awoken something in me, like this entrepreneurial thing. Like, the only way that I could ever get the lifestyle I truly want is if I go and create it myself. So I use that anger and that, frustration to drive. And I've got a passion for fishing in the outdoors. So I was like, what's something I can create that's outdoorish? So I found myself looking, researching, seeing what I could do. And I found this void, and I love to go shark fishing. So I was like, okay, I've been making my own burly because there's nothing on the market that's quality. What if I came in with my own burly business? So literally within a few weeks of that idea, I went and bought a big processing machine. I went and bought all the packaging. I went and found suppliers to get raw fish or bulk fish. And I was buying literally tons of mackerel and pilchard and salmon to literally mince up and turn to burly. And a lot of businesses come to a point where they don't make a profit for the first few years, or, it's really cutthroat. I literally hit the ground running. Like, I was in 7 tackle shops within a few months. I had this awesome retail base. People were coming to me, to my house, to buy this burly because they couldn't get it and they didn't want to make it. It's stinky. Who wants to get stinky fish on their hands unless you like it? And I liked it. I was passionate about fishing.
Yes.
But what was happening, I was working very hard, and I grew to a point where this little garage side hustle, to be able to replace my income totally, I had to step out and literally step away from the hustle of working in a garage and automate this thing. So factory, big machines, like huge investment. And I started pricing this stuff up, and I was just pricing it up with machines from China through connections I had. And I was looking at $300K minimum investment into start this business. And that was, I think it was probably about 2.5, 3 years after I'd started that I was at that point. I was like, do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? Do I really want to mince fish and be in the fishing industry? And while fishing is my passion, the answer was no. I really sat in it and I said, I don't want to do this. And I ended up just literally selling a lot of the equipment from the machinery from the business. And I kept the name and I just shut the business down. I said, I'm not doing this anymore. And it was like I killed a part of me off, but at the same time, it felt like this releasing pressure. And then, so what happened, I actually just fell into the trap. I'm like, well, I've got this job. There's heaps of overtime, whatever. I'll just do lots of work and make lots of money. And that was the trap that many men fall into. And it just so happened to be that my wife literally started an online business just as I shut down the Burly business. And I was like, okay, I didn't get it, didn't quite understand the processes of it or how it worked. But, you know, I resonated with the products and I was like, okay, yeah, well, whatever. I'll just sit on the sidelines and watch. And then I watched her actually make her first sale. And it just happened to be, I think, $1,154 dropped into the account. And I was like, shit, you know, she didn't have to do any of the stuff that I had to do. So like for me running this business, I was literally having to wear the hats. I was doing the deliveries. I was organizing the freight. I was making it, packing it, delivering it. I was like literally doing every single process. It wasn't automated in any sense. But then not only that, I was stocking product. So like literally I had huge commercial freezers pumping electricity, just running constantly. Like the freezers wouldn't turn off for like days till the bulk material froze. And I was like, wow, she was able to sell this with relatively effort and ease. And she didn't have to stock product. She didn't have to think. I was like, that had my attention. And it just so happened that she made that sale around the time I was doing the 80-hour weeks. My son was crying at the door, Daddy, don't go work. Please, Daddy, stay home. And I remember I had this epic weekend with him at home. And it was like a big realization for me, like, wow, you know, I've connected with my son. And the first day actually was hell because he wanted his mum. His mum was away. And then after that, I was like, wow, I've been missing out on this, missing out on my son's life because I'm 80 hours a week at work. You don't see anyone. You literally come home, you sleep, you wake up, take a shit, have some breakfast, and you go to work. And that was my life. And it was like, my ass was on fire. Literally, my ass was on fire after that weekend. And there was a specific event that happened that weekend with my son. And I got this text message from a coworker telling me that, oh, you know, you've got to do your 12 hours the next 3 days. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, this isn't even my boss or the manager or the supervisor. This is just someone that I work beside dictating the terms and conditions of my life. And from that point in, I just drew a line in the fucking sand. I said, no more. I went to work the next day and I said, I'm not doing your 12 hours. And they asked the question, why? And I said, family commitments. And from that point on, I made the shift. I made the shift from setting my energy and my commitment to a job to setting that energy and commitment to myself, my family. And that's when I said to Amberly tomorrow, I'm going to do this business with you. It's the only way out, you know. And I was quite excited by the idea of doing it based on the fact of the ease in which I'd seen she'd made the money. And from there, what I didn't realize, it actually unlocked a massive transformation into the man you see today. And anyone that's worked in business, especially online business, there's an inner game that goes with it. And I didn't know that when I had my first side hustle business. I was just doing whatever I just freaking throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what stuck, and it just so happened to stick. And I didn't realize the inner game. And I went and done my NLP. And I remember my coach at the time saying that business is really a spiritual game, you know, and it's a lot of trust, a lot of surrender. And for me, myself personally, I carried a lot of trauma. And I had a hard time trusting. You know, as a 11-year-old boy, I lost my father. He died of cancer. So I was like this broken boy. But then what happened after that, not long after, I got sexually abused by a trusted family member. And that, you know, created a lot of trauma and hurt in me. And I carried that trauma my whole life. Drugs, alcohol, brothels. I was just like wild. I was like really wild. But what happened when I got into business, it brings up the fact that if you're not working on healing that trauma, it's going to block you in business. It is literally going to fucking cock block you. It is going to get in your way. When people say no, and you're going to see that as rejection rather than things. So it's going to create trauma. It's going to, you know, if a sale doesn't come through or you're not making the money you want, you're going to feel that in your traumas. And it's like, this is where the inner game came. And that's basically it created the drive within me that, fuck, I've got to keep accountable. I've got to do the fucking work. And as a result of starting that business, I'm really committed to doing the work, working with people. I reckon in the last 3 years, I've probably, in myself personally, I've probably invested probably 60K in personal development and growth, because I just realized that to have the success that I want in business, I have to invest in myself. I have to constantly evolve. And that's how I've met Alan, because again, I invested in myself. And I guess the beautiful thing with investing in yourself, you actually meet new people and you meet like-minded people, and you get opportunities like this to jump on podcasts. But for myself, I'm doing a lot of talking here, Alan. I hope you don't mind.
All right, keep going.
For me, getting into this business and stepping into a new version of myself was a big part. But another big part of the business was actually, our goal was to retire me and to get out of the 9-to-5 job that I was stuck in. And myself and my wife, we both went hammer and tongs. We had a dual focus, and we started to create results within the business that was creating life-changing money. And it came to a point, I'm like, I think it was of 2021, June, and or probably May, June, and Emily's like, do you think you're ready to pull the pin? I'm like, I don't know. I don't quite, like I went down to part-time work, but I wasn't quite ready to pull it. And then for myself, we're in the lockdowns. We're in the most lockdown city of Australia, probably the world. And it was like, there's all this talk of mandates and all this. And I was like, my values were like, no, I'm not going there. So they brought the mandates in October, and I probably wasn't ready to resign and retire from that, but it pushed me over the edge. And I took a leap, and the universe backed me. The universe supported me, and I haven't looked back since. And I'm at a point now where I'm what you would call unemployed. Like I couldn't go back to work. Like I'd have to if business just stopped right now, and I'd have to figure out another offer, because I couldn't find myself back in a job. Like it'd be one, torturous for the employer who's employing me. Number two, it'd be torturous for me. So it's like that's been the transition, so to speak, from where it began as a working career to where I am today.
Fuck yeah. All right. So I want to break down some of the things that you've talked about, because I really resonate. Obviously, I've got a completely different story, but there's a lot of things that I resonate with, especially when you're talking about like emotions and whatnot. So I grew up in a Christian family, very, very loving parents. But the thing that happened to me was more so around, because I'm a very sensitive person when it comes to emotions and things like that. And very much, and you probably, like, based on what you shared, I'm going to assume that you're somewhat similar. And so I very much wear my heart on my sleeve. And for me, my world before this business was the corporate world, and I struggled to keep it all together. When people would come down on me on the work that I did, I take it very, very personal, and like burst out crying or burst out in anger and things like that. And luckily never like did anything drastic, but I just couldn't survive in the corporate world because I couldn't maintain my emotions like a politician does. And the politics are real, especially in the corporate world. So the more that you can poker face your way through meetings and things and avoid blame and those sorts of things, the more that you'll sort of advance yourself. And I'm making very, very huge generalizations about the corporate world and things like that. But there's a lot of different things that people resonate with. And like you said, it wasn't until like I was in business for myself that I had to really like take ownership of when someone says no, or when someone says, I don't want to work with you, or whatever the case is. You don't need to take it personal. Like you can take it personal, but it's not a personal attack against you. It's potential. It's more likely that they're actually saying, no, this situation isn't good for me. I like you as a person, but like it has nothing to do with what I want to do, or it just doesn't align with me. And then learning to be able to take that on and just wear it, and just know that it has nothing to do with you, and it has everything to do with the person and their opinion and how they view things and everything else as well. So as you mentioned, we obviously met at a retreat called The Rich Man, which I want to talk about, because we obviously we're doing a whole bunch of online stuff together. We then got to meet in person. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on, is because you have a very infectious energy. You're very passionate, say things how they are. And I really resonate with that stuff as well. So I guess my question for you is obviously like the retreat and the personal development, I guess, journey that you've entered into. Why do you think, like, and I'm going to specifically talk about men here, right? Because we're talking about emotions and working on, your traumas and childhoods and things like that. Even for those like myself who believe they've had such like a pretty reasonable upbringing, there's still work to be done. And there's still things that for most people still need to work on. Why do you think it's important to look inwards when it comes to your life and managing emotions, especially for men? Hello, amazing human. This is just a quick, brief message to remind you to share the love. And what do I mean by sharing the love? What I mean is, if you know someone who might get value from this episode or from this interview, make sure you share this episode with them. Also, if you are enjoying this interview and may enjoy other interviews like it, make sure you hit the subscribe button or follow button on whichever platform you're listening or watching on. And lastly, if you're really enjoying this episode, if you really want to share the love, make sure you leave a rating. A positive rating with lots of love is much appreciated. Otherwise, let's get back to the show.
With myself, my target audience has always been men, and I've worked with both men and women. Like I actually, there's a part of me that enjoys working with women too. However, I've seen so many men cockblock themselves, self-sabotage, carry such deep-rooted fear, like scared to take a leap on themselves, scared to have a go at something. Like they're willing to go and work themselves to the grave for 40 years in a job because it gives them some paycheck and a bit of superannuation for their retirement. I'm an emotional soul like yourself, but I know that there's a point when, I need to control those emotions, and I need to not let those emotions run the show, and I need to be a fucking man and step into it. And do what needs to be fucking done, like take a leap on myself. And, from what I'm seeing now is there's so many men that are just fearful of taking that leap. And you might see it yourself, Alan, like, you might see with male business owners, there's a little bit of fear about investing into yourself for their media or whatever it is. And it's like, for me, I've made my life's work about supporting these men to really step into their power and step out of it. And one, through online business for the accountability piece. Two, from the coaching side, helping men to really step into their power, heal their trauma that's holding them back, get rid of the fear that, the deep-rooted fear that might be passed down to them when they were young, or generationally, or, from past lives. Like we talk about doing the work, but then there's work that they've carried genealogically. Like it's mice are proven to pass down their fears to their offspring. And there's fears that I get scared of, and I'm like, is that mine? And I'll look back and I'm like, that was my mum's fear. And I've just never had to experience what she went through, but I've taken on her fear. So it's like, that's where my passion has come, and why like men really need to get into this space to really unlock the next level version of themselves and step into their true infinite power.
Yeah, I love that. And I actually want to take this conversation in a different direction, right? So one of the things I obviously noticed about you, so when we met in the Northern Rivers of New South Wales, call it AKA the Byron hinterland, you took your boat up, and so you're based in Eden. That's in New South Wales, isn't it? It's New South Wales Central Coast. Oh, sorry, South Coast.
Yes.
And so when you brought your boat up, it obviously brought up conversations and all the other stuff. And since then, I've gotten to start to like connect and follow and see some of the things that you're talking about. Like, and obviously hearing the story about your Burly business and all that other stuff, it all connects the dots as well. right? I'd love to understand, where did you get that passion for, like fishing, hunting? Because I know hunting's another big part of who you are, and like you talked about a little bit about your childhood and things like that. But where did that passion for the outdoors and that sort of stuff come from?
My dad. My dad was an avid hunter, an avid fisherman, and unique story. I won't go into the detail, but my dad was 20 years older than my mum, and my mum had 3 girls, my dad, and basically they thought that was it. And then suddenly my mum was 40 and I came along, pregnant at 40 in the 80s. And my dad was 60 when I was born, basically. And as I grew older and wanted to go fishing, he was okay with taking me fishing, but the hunting side struggled a bit. His eyesight wasn't as good in his older age. And I had this passion to hunt, and I dare say it came down in the genes, no doubt, but also just idolizing my father, that I love the idea of being able to go out and fish and hunt and so on. But what happened, my dad always said, look, I can't take you to the hunting piece. I can take you to do a bit of rabbiting or whatever. But when you get a little bit older, I'll make sure we take you up to my brothers, which is my uncle Tony in Mackay. You can do some hunting with, your cousins there. You got your cousins down here. I'll make sure they take you out hunting. And for me, that was like, okay, all right, well, my dad's not going to take me that much, but at least he's going to organize for others to take me. So he took me fishing, and I grew this passion for fishing. Then what happened when my dad died, my mum was dead against hunting. So her father actually died in a hunting accident which was age 5. He accidentally fell over, shot himself, and just before they came to Australia. So she had this deep hate of guns and this deep hate of anything to do with hunting. And that is just the trauma she carried. So what happened, I lost my opportunities to go hunting. That was what my dad was doing. My mum was like, you're not going anywhere near a gun or hunt. So it created this drive in me. When you tell a kid that you can't do something, or you're not allowed to do something, what the fuck does it do later on in life? It makes them fucking want to do it. So it created and the fishing was always there. But I guess with me, I lost some of that too, because my dad was the person that took me fishing. And there was no one to take me fishing anymore either. Even though my mum encouraged me to go with my uncles and all that, to some extent, they didn't take me. I remember as a little boy, 12, 13, that I'd be, playing at the front of my house, and I'd see my uncle turn down, because they lived around the corner from us, with his big boat on the back, and there was no invitation, and it was like, there's so many times I'd see that. And that was like, I missed out, I felt like I missed out. And it's like, it just created this hunger in me that I fucking love this. This is who I am, and I'm going to fucking do it more and more and more. And as I got older, when my mum had less control of me, I'm like, I'm getting into hunting now. And I got myself my guns, my gun license, and I got into hunting. And to be honest, these days, I actually probably enjoy hunting more than I do fishing. There's just, there's a connection to the primal self. I look at it on a primal thing now, and it's like, it drives me. It fucking drives me. Like my family drives me. All that, but for me, it's like freedom to get out and hunt when I like, and that's kind of what we've created with our businesses, that I can sort of hunt during the week if I want to. It's just created this passion within me that I love it so much. If I can't go hunting, there's a problem.
Yeah,
there's a problem. You're gonna see Frank not in his best. Let's just say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, obviously, talking about, your experiences with your dad, you're now a father as well. And talk to me about that, even above and beyond, because I'm assuming your kids are young, but do you want to just share what you've now taken from your dad and the importance of what you're now giving to your kids?
How I mentioned before, my dad, because he was 60 when I was born, he actually retired. My mum went back to work part-time. So he'd retired. He'd created a little bit of a nest egg for the family. And he was, he had his government pension. Financially was okay. He raised me. So the first 11 years of my life, I was with him every day. He wasn't offered a job. He wasn't off, like many fathers, how I was in the beginning years of my son's life. He was with me every day. we literally had adventures every day. My dad was also an avid gardener. See, when he was in Malta, he lived through World War II. He actually tried to enlist at age 16, I believe, or whatever. And the only reason he forged his papers, the only reason he didn't get denied, not because they found that he forged his papers, because he was a farmer, such a great farmer, and they needed food security. And that was his passion. And I grew up literally gardening in the backyard, going to his friend's farm down the road, working land there. And that was like, just being his presence was everything to me. You know, I may have only got 11 years with him, but I got, and almost to some degree felt like a bit of a lifetime too when I reflect on it, that I got so much with my dad. So many kids didn't get even a quarter of, you know, what they get in a lifetime with their dad to what I got with mine, you know? And for me, it's like, I want to give, or I'm choosing, not want, I'm choosing, it's happening, and it's a reality that I'm giving my kids that they're with their dad every day. You know, this morning, we got 3 dams on our property, and the top dam, there's a steep incline. There's a big game trail where deer and kangaroos and stuff climb up to go and have a drink. And he wants to have his adventures and climb up to that. And he's pretending it's a volcano crater. So like this morning we spent 4 hours playing up there, and then we got a star picket. We put a star picket in the ground. We got some rope, and that's his rope climbing, you know. And he's fulfilled. Like, he's getting that connection with his dad. He's, thing. And it's like, that's what I got from my dad. So it's like that there was probably my greatest lesson, was that family is so important, and to be there with things. So like I am giving that to my children now, a fully present and committed father.
I love that. And I resonate with that so much. For me, it was actually with my dad. It was actually when we go on holidays, and it's funny enough, so we obviously live on the Central Coast and used to holiday up here as well in a place called Budgewoi. And my dad used to take me to Soldiers Beach, the same beach that I'm now a surf lifesaver at. And he used to take me into the surf and put me on a boogie board and just push me on the waves. And now, my son is 6. My daughter, who's 8 as well, loves the beach. She's a water baby. They're both water babies, but specifically my little boy, he absolutely loves the surf. And exactly like you're sort of talking about, he loves, I love, being there in the afternoons, when it's decent weather, go down to the beach, put him on waves, just bought him a surfboard as well, like a little foamy. And he loves that as well. And it's really cool, even just hearing what you're talking about and reflecting on those experiences that we pass down to each other as well. And obviously coming back, one of the biggest things, one of the biggest hurdles is that work piece and being stuck in a role or stuck in a job or stuck in something and not finding the time. And even when you do have the time, you're so tired that you don't feel like doing any of that stuff. It's so interesting that you talk about all of that, because no matter what vehicle you use, whether it's, affiliate marketing, whether it's, creating a business or finding some way, shape or form to spend that time with your kids, it's so crucial, isn't it?
Yeah, so crucial. And for us, I think for me, and I'm not sure if you want to go here, but for me, with my job, when I was working those 80-hour weeks, I'd get, if I'd get an afternoon off or a day off, it'd be a trade-off. Do I take some time out for myself to go do what I love, to fill my own cup up, whilst my kid's there or my son's there begging me to hang out and play with him, and it's it was constantly having to decide. Now we don't. I just say, hey, I'm going to go off because I know I'm going to give him my undivided attention tomorrow. I know that, that my foreseeable future, is and beyond is going to be present with him, and it's if I, want to go off and have a fish by myself, like I did on Saturday afternoon, it didn't matter. I took him for a fish with me again on Sunday because I'm there. It's not like I'm tied into that job that it's I've only got one day to juggle or 2 days off. Even 2 days, even if you just work Monday to Friday, 2 days is bugger all. Yeah. You've got nothing there to what, 1 day with your family and 1 day for yourself, and then you're back to work again. It's to me, that paradigm sucks. Yeah. It sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess like to wrap all of this up, and like this chat has been awesome, just to hear your story and whatnot for, even so far. But I want to, I guess, come back to the point where, you're talking about there's potentially some people listening who are sort of like in that sort of mind frame, like I'm stuck in a job or I'm stuck doing something that I'm not really happy about or whatever the case is. And you follow that, like for what you're talking about, you follow that passion, that you follow that drive, or whether it's like something in your mind that says, this is just not right. This is not aligned to sort of who I want to be or how I want to spend my time or whatever the case is. What would you say to someone who needs that little bit of encouragement to like back themselves?
Yeah. So literally, and something coming, I'm going to share part of a story, but we literally live in a world full of opportunity, and internet, social media has really opened that opportunity up. There is so many ways to make an income more flexible, and it could be just in your job, asking to work from home because you work on a computer. That could create the flexibility. Like there was so many people I spoke to through all the lockdowns that they were working from home. They had so much time because whilst they were on meetings, they were mowing their lawn or doing whatever they had to do at home, that on the weekends, they didn't have to do any of that shit. So like there's that in itself. But if you want to move away from the commitment of a job, there is literally endless opportunities online to create an income online. Like from what we do, we utilize the vehicle analogy, but there's countless business models and opportunities, and you can upskill. And it's like, for me, if I wanted to make more money in my trades, I'd upskill and then I'd get $1 or $2 pay rise or whatever it was. Whereas here, I can learn a new skill and then literally add another offset to another part of the business. Like, I'm like, right now, my next investment's going to be to become a breathwork facilitator. And I know that that's another avenue that's going to open up money. So like, not only do I have my Enagic business, but I've also got coaching, and then to facilitate breathwork with people and have retreats at our place, facilitating breathwork. And it's like, that's just another avenue. I can do it online. Just another avenue of making money. And literally there's people screaming out, looking for opportunities online. There's people screaming out, looking to improve their health and wellness. Like, Enagic's a health and wellness product. There's literally people screaming out for it. My wife did a post the other day about, some of the transformations she's had with the product. And she's got people in her inbox now wanting to buy products. And it's like, that's a lot of money to us. And what was profound, and I'm going to go into this little story piece. Once the mandates come in, I had a fair idea they were coming. We decided to invest, and we didn't actually have the money. We put the deposit down for a brand new Land Cruiser and for a caravan. And we're like, well, you know what? They keep locking us down. Let's just wait till the next lockdown finishes, get in the car and caravan and start traveling Australia. And we did. We literally, we worked our asses off within our businesses, and we created the income to purchase the car and the caravan, and literally we hit the road. And from there, I met a lot of people, because you're on the road, you're in caravan parks, and people, it's just like, for me, I'm what you would call a networker. I love to talk to people. I love conversations. As you can hear, I'm like so passionate. Like Alan just said, I'm passionate about talking. And I got stuck talking to what you refer to as a lot of the grey nomads. So they've literally worked their whole life for the last 30 or 40 years to retire and now start traveling. And a lot of them would be shocked to say, you're such a young family, how are you traveling full time? And I'd share them, this is what we do online. And they're like, they scratch their head and think they didn't even have any amount of the opportunity. They consider us so lucky. So many of them shared with me how lucky we are to have ample opportunities to create flexible incomes. But yet so many people stay stuck in the old paradigm of staying in the job because they don't know no better. And that's where I've come, my mission is really to, awaken people to what's possible out there and to really live more flexible lives and live a quality of life where they can take their kids around Australia and still make an income, where they can be at home with their kids and make an income, where they can do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have to go into detail. There's so many things that people can do with more flexibility in their lives.
Obviously something that you're extremely passionate about, and it's so evident, and it really speaks volumes into the way that you operate as a father, as a husband, and whatnot as well. So for anyone who's listening is like, I want to get to know Frank more, or I want to find you or connect, or even hear more about what you're up to, what's the best place to find you?
See this name here? That's where, are they going to be watching?
Well, some people will be listening, some people will be watching.
Okay. So just enter my name into a Facebook search, Frank JS Galea. JS is the middle abbreviation of my middle name. Enter that, you'll find me. Reach out to me. Come jump on my profile, have a look. I'm very, very consistent. I show up every day on social media and share aspects of my life and business. Learn a bit more about me, or alternatively, send me a message and let's have a chat.
Look for the hectic haircut. You'll find it.
Like it.
I love it. I love it. Very good.
It's wicked. Hey,
it is. It is. All right. Well, mate, thank you so much for jumping on today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I know, like, I really enjoy talking about family stuff, and I know that obviously you're an avid hunter, an amazing father, and it shows in a lot of your content and a lot of the stuff that you do. So well done.
Thanks so much, Legend. I really appreciate you having me on.
No worries. That is the end of today's podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, as I mentioned before, make sure you share the love, share it with a friend, family member, or otherwise. Make sure to give us a subscribe or even a positive rating on the various platforms. And if you're interested in finding out more about Triple Effect and who we are, what we do, head to tripleeffect.com.au. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next interview.